Now, every Joe Schmo NoFap coach out there on the internet is preaching about streaks. I'm on day 30. Here's how to get to day 90. As if that number magically fixes your life. But let's be real, and pardon my French, but your streak doesn't mean shit if nothing else in your life is changing. I've coached hundreds of men through porn addiction recovery, and I can tell you this. Chasing a streak and white-knuckling your way to sobriety is one of the fastest ways to stay stuck in that cycle of acting out. Because the moment you slip, which if you're like 99% of guys out there, you will at some point, it all comes crashing down. You feel like you're back at zero. You feel like all your progress is gone. And that's not real recovery. That's a trap. It's a prison. So if focusing on your streak alone isn't the answer, what should you focus on instead? In this video or audio, if you're listening on the podcast, I'm going to break down 5 real signs of progress in recovery. These are the things that actually matter if you want long-term freedom from addiction. And make sure you stay tuned to the end because I'm also going to talk about when you should actually focus on your streak and how to do it in a healthy way. So let's dive in. Now, I've said this before, but I will say it again. Recovery is not the same as abstinence. Just stopping watching porn isn't going to fix all your problems. It's not going to solve all of your issues. It will solve some if you stop watching porn, but it's not going to actually address the underlying reasons why you got addicted in the first place. If you have a slip and you primarily are focused on your streak, what's going to happen is that you will feel like you are starting back at square one because you've been putting all this pressure on the streak and the number and just growing that number, thinking that's my sobriety date. I'm on day 30, I'm on day 60, day 90. If that's all you're focusing on, and when you have a relapse and you go back to day 0 on your counter, it might derail your entire recovery journey. If that's all you're focusing on, it is going to shatter you. It's going to break your spirit because that is all you're focused on. You have this tunnel vision, this myopic view that the streak is the only thing that matters. And as soon as you go back to day 0, it's going to feel like you're starting all over. It's going to feel like you're back at square one. And that is really one of the biggest downsides to focusing entirely on your streak. So how should you measure progress in porn addiction recovery or any addiction recovery? The first thing is to see if you get back on track more quickly than before. So what I mean by this is, let's say in the past, you have some kind of effort into breaking free from your addiction. You start building up a streak. Let's say, you're on day 30 or day 60, whatever it is, and then you have a relapse. How quickly you can get back on track is one measure of success and one measure of you making progress on your journey. So in the past, maybe it took you 2 weeks or 3 weeks of just having a binge, of really sliding back into your addiction. But now, as you've progressed on your journey, maybe you only relapse for 1 or 2 days before you course correct and get back on track. That is one of the most important things you can focus on for progress in your recovery journey, is how quickly you get back on track with your recovery practices. The second thing you should be looking for on how to see if you're making progress in your recovery journey is if you're having more self-awareness about your internal and external triggers for acting out with your addiction. What I mean by this is if you are growing in your awareness of the different emotional patterns, the different environmental situations, the different people that you might be around that trigger you either acting out or wanting to act out. That is, again, huge progress on your recovery journey. So for example, you might start to notice and gain this awareness that, hey, every time I have really intense stress at work, that's when I'm noticing a really strong craving to act out. Or maybe it's every time you have a fight with your significant other, with your romantic partner, that's when you want to act out, isolate, hide, engage in your addiction. So more awareness is one of the things you should be using to measure your progress in your recovery. And this one, again, it's so important because it's going to be something that serves you for the rest of your life. It's going to be something that you can use as the foundation, not just for your recovery from porn, but your recovery from escapism, from seeking out distraction, from self-sabotage, if you can start to gain awareness of your inner triggers and your outer triggers, this is going to serve you in the long run. And it's starting to do some of the inner work that is important for long-term sustainable recovery. Again, not the same as abstinence. We're talking about long-term recovery, building a life that you don't need to escape from. The third way you can start to measure progress in your porn recovery journey is if you start noticing that you are enjoying it less and less when you're acting out. So again, in the beginning, the addiction, it's, ignorance is bliss in a certain sort of way. You might be acting out and just not even realizing how it's harming your life. But if you are finding that as you continue to have slips or relapses, that when you slip and you're engaged in that behavior, that there's a little part of your mind that's kind of narrating and saying, what am I doing here? This isn't really bringing me happiness. Or that is in some ways not enjoying the experience because you know what's going on. That is another sign of progress in your recovery journey. So again, it's not about not acting out at all. Of course, we want to not act out, but when it happens, if you can notice that, hey, I'm not even enjoying this anymore because you're seeing clearly what it is and how harmful it is, that is a sign of progress. The fourth way to see if you're making progress in your recovery journey is if you're experiencing less shame around the topic in general. If you find it easier to open up, to talk about this problem with friends, with therapists, in the men's group that you're a part of, if you're just experiencing less shame overall, less feeling like, oh, this is only me, I'm such a pervert, I'm broken. If you're experiencing less of those emotions or fewer of those emotions, that is a huge sign of progress, because that is one of the things that keeps people locked in addiction, is that feeling of shame, is that feeling of, I need to hide this, I need to keep it secret, I can't tell anyone about it. So if you are having fewer of those thoughts of shame, that is a huge sign of progress. The last thing that I'll say about how to measure progress in your recovery journey is basically to say, how is everything else in my life going? Again, we get so focused on porn and the behavior and, how many days free and how many days have I watched or not watched? And we forget that the whole point of not watching porn is to improve the overall conditions of your life, to improve your relationships, to improve your sense of inner peace and integrity and well-being, to improve your focus, your ability to concentrate and do deep work, to be productive at your work, all these other things in our life that are important to us. And so what you should really be focusing on, and this is probably the most important, is my life on the whole improving in the ways that is important to me? Are my relationships improving? Am I acting more skillfully? Am I being more kind to people and less judgmental, and less argumentative, and less annoyed and irritated with people? Those are the things that you should really be focusing on. If those things are improving, you are progressing in your recovery journey, because recovery is really about living a deeply fulfilling life of integrity. So if you are moving in that direction where your life is becoming more fulfilling, your relationships are improving, you're acting more out of a place of integrity and more from a place of your highest self, that is a sign that you are progressing. The counter on your streak is so much less important than you realize. So I hope that you really just take that to heart, to not focus too much on your streak, and to make sure that you're focusing on these other aspects to see if you're progressing. Caveat there is that, the streak is important. The days free from it is important. And we want to be making sure that we're spending less and less time with this toxic behavior, because it is toxic. And the more time you spend with it, the more it's going to hardwire those neural pathways of lust and craving and objectification. So yes, you should be spending less time. The streak is a good signpost along the way that you might be going in the right direction or on the right track, but it shouldn't be the only thing that you're focused on. So when it comes to success, I just want to share a few final pointers for you, a few final tips that you can take away with you that will help you on your journey. The first is to remember to not compete against anyone else or compare yourself to anyone else, but just see if you can be better than you were yesterday. Compete against yourself if you have to compete against someone. See if you can be better than you were yesterday, and that will help you out in this journey. Related to that is to focus on progress, not perfection. Nobody is perfect and nobody will be perfect. And you are not ever going to be perfect at this. Whether you relapse with porn or not, you will relapse with something. You will have some moment of self-sabotage. So don't beat yourself up too much. To focus on just making progress. And when you fall off the path, can you get back on it? And then the last little tip here, always, always, always stay honest with yourself. Notice if you are slipping into denial, if you are slipping into hiding away or pretending that things are better than they are. You have to be honest with yourself. If you are starting to walk down a path of slippery slopes, getting into thirst traps or other things that are slippery slopes for you, you got to be honest with yourself and maybe find a community. Find a group of guys where you can have that kind of accountability and honesty, where you can let them call you out on your excuses and say, hey, I see you sliding. Let's go, get it together. I know you can do better than this. So that is really powerful. And that, shameless plug is why I started the Unhooked Academy Group Coaching Program. It is a space where you can get accountability, where you can show up, let go of shame, realize you're not the only one, and be supported in this journey. The Unhooked Academy program is just so powerful, and every week I'm blown away by the vulnerability and the successes of the members in the community. So if you're looking for support in this journey, I know I say this all the time in my intros, but if you are looking for support in this journey, you've got to get connected with a community. You've got to let yourself be seen, because doing this on your own is just so, so hard. So if you want more information about the Unhooked Academy program, just go to unhookedacademy.com and you can find out information about it. And on that note, we will be changing the pricing structure of the program soon. Right now is the last time to get in on lifetime access to the program. You pay one fee and you get lifetime access for the rest of your life or my life or however long the program is running. You can get access. So now, the next few weeks is the last time to get access to that offer. So if you're interested, definitely don't wait on that and sign up now. Now that's it for today, folks. Catch you guys on the next episode of Unhooked.